Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So on today's episode, in a fairly stormy, blustery day, we're taking a look at Tidal Blade's Banner Festival. Now first up, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. This is not an expansion to Tidal Blades. I've never played Tidal Blades. I don't know if I would like the game or not. I don't hear that many people talk about it. But this is purely a separate spin-off game in the same universe. So same style of artwork, same setting, same location. That's it. They've got nothing else in common.
Everybody got that?
So in Banner Festival, you are merchants trying to compete for the best sales in the various quadrants during the festival itself, get the most profit, you win. And the idea is that you're essentially playing a trick-taking game with a twist with these cards. Now, first you move your quadrant to a spot up to 4 spaces away, and the color of the quadrant means something. Now, it's colorful, yes, but there is iconography on the cards and on the board itself to distinguish for color blindness. It's not perfect. I mean, this bit around the middle ring doesn't seem very good for color blindness, but the other icons and certainly the cards themselves do have an icon to differentiate color. So colorblind people can play this game. But once you've moved it, everybody then plays one of these merchandise cards from their hand. They'll be dealt so many at random at the start of a round, and they'll play it face down, and then everybody will simultaneously reveal the card. So let's say I've got a few cards out here. Here we go. Let's say we're doing 4 players, and these are the 4 to get done. So a 9 blue, an 8 blue, a 9 purple, and a 3 yellow, whatever. So what happens is that you then evaluate, using a very nice little reference card that you got here, who had the highest trick, who had the lowest, and who was in the middle. The highest trick gets to move their little speedboat, which is essentially a race that's going on around the ring, and the more times they do laps, the more times they get to flip cards off their deck, which basically is profit earned from the race itself. I'm not entirely certain what the thematic reasoning is. I think it's maybe that you've just got better players, or you made a bet on the race before you started this game and it's just how much it pays out. I don't know, but basically the highest trick gets to move that many spaces around the board. It catches up to the gate. Now, the person who got the lowest trick gets to trigger the special ability of the card itself. And these card effects let you get more points, allow you to put more banners out, allow you to move the boats. They do essentially what you're already doing normally, but it's a pretty useful ability, and sometimes these can be quite powerful. Whoever's in the middle gets to put one of their banner flag tokens out on the quadrant using the drawbridge and going across until they find one that's relevant. If there's a bonus, you get it. If not, then fine. But once they're taken, except for the central ones, which cover multiple quadrants. The reason you're doing this is because at the end of the round, you have an interim scoring phase where you see who's got the majority of these tokens in the various quadrants, and you'll score points accordingly. But what dictates high, middle, and low? Well, the quadrant you're in. Whichever quadrant you're in, there is a hierarchy of the colors. So at this quadrant, purple is the best value, then orange, then yellow, then blue. So with the cards that I've just played down here, the 9 purple is clearly the best trick here. But then, even though this is a 3, and these 2 are the cards at 8 and 9, the yellow 3 outranks the 2 blue cards because of this hierarchy. So the yellow gets 2nd place. The 9 gets 3rd place, and then this 8, despite being an 8, is the lowest trick in that. So this one gets to trigger its ability, this person gets to move their speedboat, and these 2 get to put out banner tokens. And this quadrant is dictated by the player whose turn it is at the active turn. So every time it moves and a new trick is done, you've got to kind of look at it and go, what am I trying to do here? High, middle, or low, and play your cards accordingly. On the side, there is also fruit that you can get, which are these really cool little sort of yellow, almost gummy candy looking pieces. These are really nice.
Would you care for a jelly, baby?
Occasionally, there will be a pile of fruit in the middle, and then people will take fruit at various times. When it drains, you see who's got the most fruit. They get points, everybody else gets half, you know, and then it rinses and repeats throughout the game. The game continues for 3 rounds in this fashion. You drain out your whole hand, you have the scoring phase with the various banner tokens, you then collect most of them back, you do another couple of rounds of the cards and the banner tokens, and at the end there's a little bit of final scoring, total up all your profit, and of course, the one with the most profit.
Of course!
So Banner Festival is, as you can see, a pretty minimalistic design. Maybe a little bit too minimalistic in some respects. I mean, this is the box, okay? So this is a normal Ticket to Ride size box in a sense. Maybe a little bit thinner, but still, it's a normal size box, okay? There's not a lot on the table, as you can see. This is all that's in the box. I mean, I've bagged up player components. So you've got your few cards, you've got your banner tokens and the reference aid. And then fruit goes in the bag, and that's kind of it. Oh, and a bag for point tokens, and a bag for these cards. That's it. This box is way too big. The only reason this box is that big is because of this rulebook. Yep, because even this folds down into 4s, so the box could have been smaller to even accommodate this. But yeah, it's I feel like maybe the box could have been a little bit smaller and this could have been packaged accordingly, because you do end up with quite a lot of wasted space purely because of this. Not the best on the sustainability front, but that's a minor blemish. It's just, would have been nice if it took up a little bit less space. But component-wise, other than that, whew, this is nice. I mean, this is a very beautiful game. Yes, thematically, whatever. You're playing a trick-taking game. The fact that it's Tidal Blades universe means nothing to me, because I never played Tidal Blades. All it does is means that you get this gorgeous artwork on here, which I do love. I do particularly love this sort of artwork. And, you know, it's all over the cards. The pieces are good. I mean, you've got some very nice, you know, chunky wooden counters for your banners. You've got proper, you know, cardboard chits for, you know, decent size for the victory point markers. A very good reference aid that is useful to have in the game. You've got the gummy fruit that I almost just want to eat and chew on because they look so juicy and yummy and
Rather good.
On top of that, you've got a cool gate marker and these cards. I mean, the card is decent amount of stock, although I would definitely recommend sleeving these because people are going to have them in their hand, they're going to be playing them face down, flipping them over and discarding them. You're going to want to sleeve this deck, but it's not that big a deck. I mean, you've only got 4 suits and you've effectively got 0 to 9 in all of them, so it's not like you'll need that many sleeves. I definitely recommend sleeving it just to be on the safe side. You can probably decide not to sleeve your starter cards, the ones that you flip over for the events. If you've got spare sleeves, do it. If not, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, this is a very nice package and not that expensive to buy from my knowledge. But, you know, it wasn't that expensive at Essen, but it's just nicely produced. Yes, you don't get that much in a box, but what you do get in the box is all top quality. Now, this game goes from 2 to 5 players, and the player scaling isn't as good as it could have been. Now, you're probably expecting me to say 5 is horrible, and it's like 5 is right out, you know, as the meme goes, and 5 was just put on the box to sell more copies.
5 is right out.
Well, you're half right. I do sort of believe that it was done in that fashion, but mainly the reason that I think this game works better with less players than it does more is a couple of things. Firstly, time length. Yes, you're flipping cards simultaneously, but it's multiple people resolving stuff, and so the game will naturally take longer and probably outstay its welcome when you go 4 or 5 players, particularly 5. 5, I just think, drags this game on a bit long. Not to mention the chaos factor is a lot higher, because you're trying to think, right, well, okay, I need to have the highest trick or the lowest trick or the ones in the middle. Well, when you've got 5 of you playing in a trick, it's quite tricky to get the highest and the lowest card. It's very easy to end up in the middle, but to be high and low, that's a tall order when you've got 4 or 5 of you playing. You know, sometimes you just end up doing it by complete fluke. 2 and 3 players is definitely the sweet spot though, because in 2 and 3, the game is super fast. It says 30 minutes on the box. That's pushing it, even with 2 players. But 60 minutes should be the cap of time a game should take with 2 or 3 players. 4, if you know what you're doing, could finish in 60 minutes. Chances are it'll be closer to 75. It could go longer if you have 5 players. It just takes a bit longer to do that many cards. Not to mention that the biggest problem I have is the fact that 4 to 5 players, not only is it a bit more chaotic with the cards, but these banner tokens become ridiculous. This is just having one of my player banners on the board, and you can see there's a fair amount. Now try 4 players combined, try 5 players combined, and see if you can find out who scores what for majorities and end up in a situation avoiding the one time where inevitably, yes, it becomes unwieldy with these banners. It gets ridiculous, you start running out of them pretty quickly. It's just too much fiddliness with 4 or 5 players with these banners. 2 to 3 is a lot more manageable. So 2 to 3, best played at. 4 and 5, 4 is decent, 5 I don't recommend, and sorry, no solo mode, deal with it.
There'll be plenty of time to discuss your objections when and if you return.
But as trick-taking games go, and I like trick-taking games in general, this is not your standard trick-taking game. I mean, you play it face down, you flip it face up, and then you see what happens in terms of the trick. So there are some differences to a typical trick-taking game. Again, that's good, because it means this has a unique place. But I found this quite an interesting little quirky game, actually, because I like that decision making, that depending where this gate is, changing the colour hierarchy of your hand. You might think, oh, I've got a brilliant hand, it's all yellows and they're all really high. Yeah, that's great, if yellow's worth anything. You go to a quadrant where yellow isn't worth jack, then suddenly your high value means nothing. And so you're kind of thinking, well, hang on a minute. Which one of these could I play in order to get the ability on the bottom? Would that be better then? Or shall I wait until we get to a point where yellows are powerful and then play my yellow cards in order to make the most of their high values? That decision process is just a really cool thing. It's partially push your luck, but it's also just a cool tactical decision that you gotta make. And this thing can go up to 4 spaces, so it can cross a couple of quadrants at a time, and even that's filled with a bit of tension, because you'll think, right, please put it in the purple, please put it in the purple, please put it in the purple, purple, no! And someone puts it into orange, and it, like, now you've got to think, oh, is that card no good anymore, so maybe I should play this one. And you'll also be aiming for certain things, like, I really want to put banner tokens out. Well, then I need to finish in the middle. Right, so don't play anything too good, but then also don't play anything too low. It's almost like the Dixit card mechanic. But then if I really want to move my speedboat around, because my speedboat is, for example, you know, here, and the gate is here, I go all the way around the map if I go the speedboat. Right, well, what's the best card I can play at the moment? Well, highest card I've got is 8. Yellow. Oh, yellow's not worth anything. So my highest suit is a 4. Oh, is 4 going to be good enough? I don't know. What has been played? Because not all cards are in the game, and, you know, it's a fixed how many players. You'll look at what's being discarded, so you can kind of gauge, like, 4 orange is pretty high at this point. Oh, give it a go. 4 orange it is, and then you succeed, and it's all really cool. It's just a really cool tactical choice that you make with these. The one thing I'm not a fan of, though, with these is these abilities. These abilities are pretty generic. I mean, most of them are like, advance your watercraft 1 space per banner, place a banner at the region's tower, gain a fruit and advance your watercraft, place 2 banners at this region's tower, place a banner in the nearest place, gain a fruit. The only ones that are slightly different, I think, are the 9s, where you essentially get to place it in your scoring pile, take it out of the game, and it's worth 5 points. Those are pretty cool if you can play it and get it for its ability, because obviously 9 is not an easy card to get as the lowest card in the game. But the others are pretty generic abilities, and they're basically just clones of the higher and the lower front. I would have liked maybe some more interesting abilities to be on these cards, and there's a lot of rinse repeat, so certainly, you know, it's not a deal breaker. I just wish that maybe there was just something a little bit more interesting on these abilities, because they don't feel quite as cool as they could have been. But as I say, they can still be useful. They can still be pretty handy to get 2 banners out at once, and gaining fruit. Gaining fruit is useful. I mean, you'll get it from the banner spaces, but you can score a decent amount of points on a regular basis if you can collect, say, 5 or 6 of this fruit and have the majority when the festival happens, because 1 point per fruit, nothing to be sneezed at. I mean, half a point per fruit's not too bad, but 1 point per fruit and you've got the most of them, 5 or 6 points can make a decent amount of difference. So there's a lot of interesting little tactical choices to make, but none of it's brain burny. You shouldn't necessarily be APing in this game to a great extent, other than possibly the choice of your card, and even then, that's mainly when you've got a full hand, maybe in the first couple of turns of a round. As the round goes on though, your hand and choices dwindle, you'll be able to quickly decide which card you want to play, and everything resolves pretty quickly. Yeah, there's a few interim scoring phases and you've got to stop when the fruit dries out, but they don't take too long. It's mainly just the banner majorities that kind of grind the game to a halt briefly, but again, that's not as big a deal if you play with 2 or 3 players. I just found it to be a bit too much of a grinding halt with 4 or 5. So Banner Festival was an interesting little surprise for me. I wasn't expecting much from this at all. I mean, I'd never heard of this game before I went to Essen, practically. I think it appeared on the pre-spiel lists and that, and I saw it and I thought, well, it looks pretty, but, you know, whatever, I don't care about Tidal Blades. And this is going to mislead people, the fact that they think it's an expansion. Why do it in the Tidal Blade universe? Yes, it looked gorgeous as all get out. Not going to fault it for that. But the fact that it's fooling people into thinking this is an expansion is going to hurt your sales. You should have known this going in. But, you know, I didn't even know it was a trick taker. People had to tell me. It's like, now Luke, give Banner Festival a try. It's a trick taker. You'll probably like it. And it's like, okay, it's perked my interest a bit more. Grabbed it, and it's like, this is actually pretty cool. It's a neat game. As much as I have a problem with the 4 and 5 player count of this, 2 and 3 do work spectacularly well, and 4 is not a deal breaker. I'll still play this with 4, because let's face it, 3 player still has the same amount of cards out. It just cuts the length down a bit and makes it a bit less fiddly with the banners, and that is a bit of an annoyance, but I can overlook that to some extent. I'll never play this with 5, of course, but there's a lot of good things in this game. The tactical choices with the cards I really enjoy. The artwork in this is beautiful. Yes, it doesn't have much of a table presence in terms of stuff. I mean, it really doesn't. I mean, this is it. This board and your individual cards. That's it. You can put point tokens in a little tray, and that's it. It takes up next to no space on the table, which is a really good plus point compared to a lot of other games I've played lately. But then you've got a really easy to follow rulebook with a reference guide and a summary at the back. You know, I didn't have a problem understanding this game at all. The component quality is really good. Bag it up by player count. The setup's really quick. The teach is quick. It's got a lot going for it, and I do feel, yes, it suffers at 4 and 5 players, and yes, I probably won't get this to the table that often with 2, but if I can, I will. But if I've got 3 of us, this is definitely one of the best trick taker games that I've played, and I'll want to bring this out and I can. So it does depend on player count, but overall I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. I'm going to give this a distinction level, actually, because I think it does a lot of things right, and the blemishes drop it from a 10 to a 9, and certainly if you look at my player scaling rating, I think this is a 9 when played with 2 or 3, and an 8 when played with 4 or 5. So this is definitely going to depend on your player count for this game. If you're used to having large groups, then maybe this isn't the best one to get, but it will still be pretty good. I mean, 8 is still a great score, but it is going to be a little bit unwieldy. But if you're playing this mainly with 2 or 3 players, you cannot go wrong with this game. Just remember, not related to Tidal Blades. Publishers, stop doing this, please. So that's it from me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. I'm Luke Hector, and if you like what you see, then please do something for me. Please thumb up the video, and especially thumb up the video on Board Game Geek when the video goes up, because it's great to see it appear in the hotness reviews, but that only happens if enough people thumb it up on Board Game Geek. Otherwise, you can always check out the Patreon, you can subscribe to the channel, but most of all, I'd like to get your comments down below. What do you think of this game? Were you fooled like me, thinking that this was an expansion and it turns out it wasn't? Do you like trick-taking games? You got any others you can recommend? Or have you tried this one yet, and does this one catch your eye or catch your interest in terms of how it plays and works? Until next time though, check out more content on the channel, including the recent review I did for Flamecraft, and also the review I did for Starship Captains, both also fairly lightish games. So take care, and remember, as always, regardless of how fast your speedboat is, it's still only a game. Bye for now. Man, those fruit do look yummy.
Would you like a jelly baby?
Shut up!